telling Jung that, Jung was telling her that all these people who write, hi, Tim, just getting started a little bit here. All these people that write books about psychology, or write books and think that is psychology, and his implication was, for him, the only thing that is psychological, having to deal with the psyche or the soul, were unconscious images, which you have a dialogue with, you through active imagination, amplification of dreams, drawing, sand play. I mean, that, he says, is psychology, and this is what we're going to get in the living symbol. This is psychology. And then Hilda Kirsch told Jung, she says, well, you write books. How do you explain that? And he says, anything I ever wrote that was intellectual is garbage. In other words, the only thing that was real, as far as he was concerned, were what he told Gerhard Adler. He says, all I try to do, who wrote The Living Symbol, all I try to do is to place mirrors around the primordial fire. I mean, that was he felt his role was to place mirrors around the primordial fire, catch the reflection, and try to integrate it into consciousness, But anyway, we'll just start with the living symbol here. I'll see how far I can get. I went about halfway through the Black Vision, because there's a lot here, and it's so, it's so full of content. He's kind of like Hillman. There aren't many wasted breaths. But anyway, this patient of his was 48. She was a responsible professional, by no means wealthy. Analysis demanded a great sacrifice for her, but she wasn't narcissistic. Her life was full of interesting pursuits, and she was relatively well adjusted, and so she was approaching the second half of life, and she was, as an unmarried woman, it implied that certain biological limitations in her analysis. In other words, at this point, hi, Arpine, we're just getting started here. You didn't really miss anything. Anyway, in the second half of life, because of certain limitations on the possibilities of her analysis were going to be more, the libido would be flowing not outwards towards childbirth, but it would flow inward towards other directions. And yet life loses none of its vitality or its fullness or its richness when it turns inward. In fact, it could become even more intense, and her new channels, new means of expression, instead of a natural experience in the external life. This is the second half of life. Instinct is still there, even though you're not going to be having children anymore. The instinct is still there, but now it finds expression in inner realization and meaning. And basically, that's the ego is now returning from its outer position, which was separated from nature. The instinctual life now says, now you must find a new center of awareness that's not out there. We suggest a new possibility of a center of awareness, and that is where the unconscious circle and the conscious circle intersect, and now you have the third middle realm, and that's what the second half of life is about. But it's an instinctual, natural movement of libido or energy, and So this was, so she basically, he just mentions what the symbolic life is. Symbolic life means awareness of the meaning of human experience. It means relatedness to the world of images, which transcend both the limits of the conscious mind and the ego personality. It means a consciousness which includes the knowledge of its roots, its unconscious conditions. It means a realization of the transpersonal archetypal factor of inner order and the significant realizations communicated through symbols, which are the best possible formulation. But that's getting a little verbal. But anyway, let's just get started on her. Just a little more biographical. She's from a scholarly family, not of great wealth, but with excellent cultural background. Her father was Cornish, her mother was Kentish. Her father was a teacher in secondary schools and an amateur musician. Her father was 3 years younger than the mother. He was 34 when she was born. He died at 62 from cancer. So she would have been, 28, and her mother died 3 years earlier, so she would have been 25. He was gentle and rather melancholy, intellectual and artistic, of a retiring disposition, but far from lacking in personality. But he's overshadowed by his dominating mother. The mother was also a teacher, successful headmistress of elementary schools, full of inner vitality, warm-hearted, emotional, and was loving and singularly understanding. Yet, for some reason, though, she has a slight, this is her lack of relatedness to her mother was her reason for her claustrophobia. Her mother died 2 years before her father at the age of 63 from heart problems. Okay, it was difficult for the patient to have a relationship with the mother, and she was unaware of this complication earlier in life. She had great insight into her mother's personality, but no insight in the impact of her mother on her. The family life was affectionate. Her parents were very lovable and attached to each other. 4 children. There was a 5-year-old older sister who was very introverted. And then there was a very reserved brother who was 4 years older than her. And then there was another brother that was 18 months younger. And he was so, I mean, this kind of gives the background. Hi, Maggie. Just getting started here. Just giving some of the background. So essentially what her problem was that she really, her main problem was that she needed to, I don't know, it developed gradually, but some of the possible reasons were that her parents were pushing her into an academic life, and she had to win a lot of scholarships. She was an ISTP, so she was a thinking type with feeling as her inferior function and intuition as her auxiliary feeling function. So sensate thinking person is usually very masculine, traits. If you ever look in like Myers-Briggs have a book called Gifts Differing. And if you look, they don't do this anymore, but they used to take, 20,000 students at a university, and they would give them all psychological tests and other groups of people, and then they would group them into types, and women tended to be extroverted, intuitive feeling types, you know, and where men tended to be extroverted, sensate thinking types, just generally, you know. And there weren't a very, and then the introverts were just a tiny minority, you know. But anyway, she's suffering from this. Uh, she did brilliantly at school and studied modern languages, and but she felt very disconnected. She just reinforced her intellectual side with her academic ambitions. So the intellectual or the masculine side were very over accented. And then she moved. She needed to get away from England, so she moved to Geneva and was in a international organization there. And she was very successful until the 1939 war, when she moved back um, was forced to move back to England. And she was successfully professionally and socially. She was successful professionally and socially, but had a lack of self-confidence when it came to which tended to make her overdo things, both professionally and in social relationships. So she tended to become the mother in a social relationship. She tried to overdo it. Instead of having an intimate relationship with the man, she tried to be their mother. You know, I mean, that was at least her case with. Hi, Jordy. Just getting started. So anyway, then she liked to crawl up mountains. You know, her first claustrophobia surfaced when she was in her mid-30s, and it always seemed to happen in the mountains, uh, at a hotel or something. But then it started to increase, and finally at 44, and you know, Jung's near-death experience was on April 4th, 1944. So it was 4/4 of 44, you know, and she's 44 when this happens. And this was when she could not overlook this. And this was at the Chemnau. I can't pronounce it. It's in Switzerland. How do you pronounce that, Jordy? It's let me see if I have I think I have a picture of it here. This is that's that's near the where she had this vision, okay, or this sense of just an attack that was so severe that she couldn't overlook it. Okay, so she woke in the middle of the night. She had to leave the room, and she spent the rest of the night sitting outside on the hotel steps. She eventually fell asleep and had a dream, and the dream was of the broken rod. I mean, of the rod. It wasn't the broken rod, but just the rod, and that looked like this. This was the rod. Let's see. Yeah. She had the dream of this rod, which is essentially, you know, is this is the labyrum of Constantine, which he said in this sign you will conquer, and at the edge of it was the monogram of Christ, but here it's a 1, 2, 4, and it's inside this blackness of an egg, and the rod represents a masculine brightness, and the darkness represents a maternal unconsciousness, and it represents both an egg and the womb, and it represents, to her, it was both a key to understanding her claustrophobia, and also a magic wand that showed her that that the way it worked was through the unconscious. So, and also it represented the creative phallus. So the creative phallus is in the maternal womb, and so there's a conjunctio here too as well. So it was, and what Adler says, it not only it condensed the etiology or the explanation of the source of her claustrophobia, and it also represented the solution. So it was sort of, you know, the beginning, the prima materia, and the goal. I mean, it was the beginning and goal. So anyway, that was what she experienced out of there. And then she, for 3 years, everything went okay. And then at 47, she had to return to England because of the war. And then this broke up her sacred circle, which was, she had a boyfriend there, or a partner. She loved the mountains. She loved Switzerland. She loved her professional relationships. Everything was gone. So she, you know, the rug pulled out from under her, you know, at that point. So anyway, so her claustrophobia started increasing in nature and intensity. It was no longer an adequate description for what she was experiencing, because it didn't just happen in enclosed spaces anymore, but happened in the open air. And it was more like attacks of acute anxiety, and less physical, more mental, acutely distressing and incomprehensible intuition of the nature of the world, and that all that could be said was that it was darkness and emptiness, and there was no possibility of relationship with it. I mean, that was her description of it, you know. And so she began analysis at that point. Now, this whole book is going to be almost like a mystery novel of how she fixes this, and she does fix it, you know. And it's really due to her dedication and with almost religious fervor to the task. She began analysis. She said she would have never remembered that dream of the rod if she hadn't just happened to meet somebody who knew Jung at this hotel, you know. And since he knew Jung, she decided she'd tell him the dream, and he thought it was very interesting, but didn't interpret it for her, and told her that she should read Jung's books. And she read Jung's books, and of course it didn't help her at all, but she knew, though, she could sense that the answer was through a Jungian psychologist. So she had, you know, met up with H.G. Baines, you know, Peter Baines, they called him. And he was he referred her to Gerhard Adler. And Gerhard Adler was in Britain as well, because, you know, he came from a Jewish family, and they didn't feel comfortable in Switzerland. I think after about 1936 or something like that. So he worked with Michael Fordham and those people in Switzerland, but he'd spent many, many years of analysis directly with Jung and Tony Wolff. And I think you can tell it too if you, as we read this book. And Adler gives a little description of analysis. You know, it's a temenos, it's a magic protective circle, it's an enclosure, which is both a prison for the term of the work, and the creative womb, the seeding place where the diamond body is integrated into consciousness, where the diamond and produced, you know. So that was his little description of it. The dream of the rod was that on a, you know, she's having this attack of claustrophobia. At this hotel, she has to leave. She has to go sit outside. She eventually falls asleep, and then she has the dream that on an oval patch of blackness, um, uh, uh, which shaded off vaguely at the end, a rod made of yellow and white metal, and at the one end was the monogram of the figures 1, 2, 4. Okay, and I'll just show you real quickly. This is Constantine had this vision in the year 313, and this was a coin that was made in 337. So it was just made about 25 years later, and you can see it's pretty small, but at the top, it's kind of that P. There is a monogram of Christ with a cross on it, and then there's a snake underneath, which is very mysterious and pagan, and cool in that respect. So anyway, the just she this dream played this decisive role in her life. She just knew that this was a very important dream, and it the key was the promise of help. The magic wand was the magic of the power of unconscious. Not that that was not just irrational and hostile. It was full of perspective and constructive energy, and the numbers 1, 2, and 4 were very significant. He says numbers are physically real as well as psychically real. They're quantitative and qualitative. And Maggie, that I don't know if they're always saying the wonderful qualitative aspect of numbers that the Chinese had, the significance of numbers. I think there's one story where they polled some generals whether they should continue the battle the next day or they should retreat. And the vote. Now I've got this wrong, but I think the vote was 5 to continue the battle and 3 to retreat. And they said, well, of course they retreated because 3 was a more auspicious number than 5. So it was the quality of the vote, not the quantity of the vote. So, if you had a vote election, you'd say, well, who got the magical number, not who got the most votes. So anyway, the 1, 2, and 4, are extremely significant because they represent the formation of the mandala. It's the development of the mandala. And if you look at the mandala of the Tao, which is the 2 fish that are mixed, and then they have a little bit of whiteness in the black and blackness in the white. The circle 1 represents in Taoism the non-beginning. There's no beginning. 2 represents the primordial beginning. There's 2, and 4 represents the totality. This is where yang and yin that contain the germs with each other begin to interact, even though they're opposites. And so this also there is this aspect of the missing 3. 3 is missing. So 3, means has to do with the spiritual, and it's missing. What 3 misses is evil, in the Trinity. So it represents perfection, where in the quaternity, this dark element is included. So it's not perfect, but it's complete. So it's this opposition of the masculine perfection versus the feminine completeness. So, for the feminine aspect, and always we're going to use capital F feminines, and capital M masculine. So we're not talking about individual beings. We're talking about energies which we, both men and women, possess, but we're lopsided. Males have too much of the masculine and not enough of the feminine, and the feminine they do have is usually a little distorted, and where women tend to be the opposite. They have both, but they tend to be more eros related. And I was telling my wife that this morning too. I mean, she does a lot of working with troubled women, and I said, they all seem to have man problems. They're all single, and and none of them are, and they're always having these disastrous relationships with men. Of course they're in AA. But she's and I told her, just a little bit. I said, the Jung had this wonderful image that women are earth in need of spirit. So when they have a relationship with a man, a sexual relationship, it has a slight numinous or divine quality, or something of meaning has happened, something of some symbolic significance, and it has a more permanent aspect because, it's related somewhat to the creative function, and she feels it more. And yet the man, he's spirit in need of earth, and he really doesn't like earth. He's above it. He's airy. Earth is too low for him. So when he has a relationship of conjunctio with a woman, afterwards he says, "Ooh, I gotta leave, or I'll be contaminated." So I mean, there's this. That's why men and women really, there's a kind of a disconnect in their communications. They just, what in the world are you thinking? I can't understand you at all. But anyway, so the absence of three is telling her that she's too much on the logos side, and the 1, 2, and the 4 are telling her that is the key to your healing, and it's also the magic of the unconscious is the way of that you're going to accomplish this. Now, why don't we take a break, and just if you got any comments, because then after this we go into the black vision and the wilderness, which is very Tim-like, by the way. This is going to be a Tim vision. But anybody got any comments or about the first part? Did I just ramble a little discombobulated through it? But let me just kind of sum it up then. I mean, the idea is this woman has the difference between claustrophobia and agoraphobia. Claustrophobia is this feeling of being contained in and trapped and can't get out. So it tends to be with her problems with her mother, she doesn't have enough space, and she feels constricted, almost like she's trapped in the womb and can't get out or something, and needs to get out. She needs the masculine side, where agoraphobia is where you're afraid to go out in space. So you've lost you need to, you're too much in the father world. They don't have any connection with the ground. Their feet aren't on the ground. So this would be somewhat related to a Power experience, but, and then, so anyway, what we're going to see through this whole thing, and that's why I say it's just like a detective novel, is how she really actually heals herself through this process. She's, I think I pretty much covered the rod aspect. he does a really good job with these dreams, by the way. But anyway, any more comments, and then I'll just keep heading on through it.
I understand part of it. Was when you say, my understanding of this woman who's suffering from claustrophobia is that she was being pushed by the parents to study a lot,
Yes.
right, in early life, and focusing on all these academic achievements in life. And my understanding is, as you explained, that she was on the male side overdeveloped, right? My understanding. But then when in her dreams, it was a womb, inside is a phallus, which is a rod, right? And my understanding.
Yeah, the creative phallus in the
creative phallus, which is the creative power of the masculine power.
Yes.
And that part I got a little bit don't understand. Is that she is lacking, she, as you explained, she has a difficult relationship with the mother, because the mother must has been smothering or pressuring her all along when she grew up, and that part stays in her unconscious and stuff like that. And she has not been confident in herself, because she might always want to please others, please her parents to gain love, some sort of things like that. But then if my understanding is right, is if she is having overdeveloped masculine side, the logos, then isn't it true that she needs to get more in touch with her anima instead? But interestingly is, that's my layman understanding, but interestingly is that in this dream and this picture, it is showing the other way around, where there's like a phallus, which is a creative symbol of the male, the masculine, positive side of masculine showing up. So in that part, I got a little bit, don't understand what is going on in there.
Okay, well, I think, yes, I see what you're saying, that this it's the creative phallus, it's not the rational phallus. So the creative phallus is a little more irrational, and it's also more of the instinctive masculine, and it doesn't really represent the logos. It's more of an instinctual, and actually, I think, and you can correct me on this, Jan, I think you're doing a wonderful job here, by the way, in the text. But she, her two associations were the key, which is the promise of help, and the magic wand, which is the magic power of the unconscious. And she finds out it's not just irrational and hostile; it's full of perspective and constructive energy. And I think Adler added the fact that it was it seemed to be a conjunctio. It was the womb and the creative phallus, and that was just something he added. I don't think she mentioned that, but yeah. But anyway, it is not. We'll find out later. We're going to meet the most positive animus ever, which is going to be in a big contrast. I don't know, a few of us were, when we were doing the Anna Marjula, we met the most negative animus ever, and now we're going to meet the most positive animus ever. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
You were talking about the 3 represents perfection, which is masculine, and the 4 is not perfect, but is complete, which is feminine. And Jan put on the chat that this discussion of 4 and 3 being the other way around, that the masculine numbers are odd numbers and the feminine numbers are even numbers.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. If I didn't say it, that's what I was trying to say anyway.
So what you meant to say was the 3 represents perfection, which is masculine?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Well, perfection, 3 without the 3 also represents time, where 1 is there's that jeez, darn it, dog. Just a second. Well, hold on just one second. I'm gonna. Oh wait, he shut up. Okay. I was gonna yell at him to shut up, but I didn't want to do it on camera. But anyway, yeah, it is. The 3 is absent from this monogram of her 1, 2, and 4, which is very significant because it represents the key is the one is the feminine numbers. You know, 1 is the development of the mandala. 1, 2, and 4 is development. 1 is undivided pre-conscious totality, non-beginning. 2 is the division into polarities, which is the inevitable result of 1 entering into consciousness. It's called the primordial beginning. And then 4 is the synthesis antithesis, where they become germs, where they. I did a little bit of a drawing. I don't know if it helps anybody else, but what it suggests, he says, is a new center of consciousness. This is suggesting to her a new center of consciousness that is not the conscious will of the ego, because she's just she has she keeps saying over and over again that this thing, there is no possibility of relationship between the conscious will of the ego and this black vision or this wilderness. No possibility of communication. It's darkness, emptiness. It's the void. It's completely empty of any content or meaning. And what this rod represents is on the right is where there is a new center of consciousness, where the black vision and the conscious will of the ego suddenly do have a relationship, and where it comes is through the feeling function, through her. Go ahead, Jordy. Let me get rid of this.
Was it?
Well, I'll go ahead. I don't care. It was either. Why don't you go first, Kevin, and then Jordy?
Yeah, I just well, I was reflecting a bit what Maggie said. When looking at the egg, I see mostly green and purple color. And green is often a color for nature. You can have green anima, but also the purple could be often in painting, a sign of either neuroticism, or it could be a spiritual color. Dalai Lama has a line of, purple on it. He wears orange, but what separates him is this line of purple, which is the spiritual color. So I feel like even the symbol of egg is obviously a symbol of wholeness, but it can also be a symbol of potential. It's probably both. So I just find it interesting that, you have a color of nature, green, and then you have the color of, I would say, spiritual purple, which is more towards the archetype, the ultraviolet end of the spectrum.
Well, what's interesting is green is a color more of eros, and purple is tending towards intuition. So they're, even though they were supposed to both represent black, I get, yes, there are green and purple in there. So there's a sense of eros. Green is usually sensation, which she's a sensate, but I think it also can represent the feminine, the greenness of, like Hildegard den Bingen. Go ahead, Jordy.
Well, just to say, I wouldn't say goodbye. I will say that in 2 or 3 minutes. It will be difficult for me this Sunday and next Sunday to participate. I am
okay, sure,
with my family. Again, it's a platitude, but I am quite pleased that this exists and I can participate. And I have to say thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And more pertinent to the debate, I should warn, well, that's pretentious. There is a temptation to be nominalist with meanings, either colors or numbers or something like that. Mm-hmm. That X equals Y or something like that. that works more in an intuitive flow, say, notion displacement, and it's personally laden. The meaning which is associated erases, modified, exact, qualified, or modified somehow. Generally speaking, when Jung talks the quaternary, it goes beyond number 4. Traditionally, the understanding is that geometry begins at 3, at number 3. 1, 2, and 3 are tricky. That traditionally the number assigned to humanhood, I would say men and women, it's 5 or the pentagon or something like that, for a good reason. But again, I wouldn't be nominalist of pretending to reduce an equation that say ping means what, or
No.
17 equals that, or 23 equals something else. I mean,
That's very good.
I've been participating in thousands of that type of debates in the last 60 years, is that they are not particularly fruitful.
No.
Said that, it will be a privilege to review in a couple of days the recording of that. I'm going to the chat notes. And I know I am the fault because I owe you to the group a couple of little papers elaborating on matters. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, you know, we're going to find in the next part too, what we kind of learned it with Hillman was that she is a stone. You know, she's stony. She's not earthy. You know, she's very rigid and literal, and she's trapped in the rational ego. And what needs to happen is what you're just saying, Jordi, is a solutio. We're going to dissolve the rigidities that are making her a stone. And let's see, I got about 15 more minutes. I'm definitely going to turn it over at the end, but I would just read. Let's just read her. Now this in 47. Then she had this, or when she was 47. So I'm guessing this was in 19. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what year it is, but anyway, then this is the poem about the black vision. And what's really interesting about this is she calls it the eye and the wilderness. And she says, now she is the granite peaks. So she's this, this is a very static dream. And this is how she's trying to describe in verse this, and he says it's much more genuine because this was written in a very desperate situation. You know, just 1 second. I am so sorry. Let me just. All right. And she was in a very desperate situation when she wrote this, and then the following more active story where we're going to meet the active the positive animus, which first shows up here. All right, and it says, the lightning strikes the granite peaks. They cannot wreathe, they cannot scream. Is that writhe?
I think it's right.
Yeah, they cannot writhe, they cannot scream. Now she's describing herself here. Woo! Her wounds bleed stones. Her helpless rocks roll grinding in the glacier stream. All night, a mad, malignant wind buffets the ridge with blow on blow, and from the high, tormented crest draws out a shrieking plume of snow. The bridge of logs is swept away. The path stops short on the moraine, at that black gulf where nothing lives except the night's inhuman pain. No voice, no face, no living soul. Only the two of us are there. The I, that's her, and the wilderness returns its stare. Now, that's her description in almost complete agony. It's real time of her, description. And this sounds very stark. Later, it's not going to be so stark. Let me see.
Craig, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead. Yes.
Thanks. I just, this is like the first book that I've actually read as part of this group.
Yeah.
So I actually have a substantive comment. I'm so impressed by this woman and how intuitive she seems as far as like the content of her dreams, the way she expresses things, she does drawings and paintings and like spontaneous, like active imaginations, and she has like visions and things. So it's like, despite the fact that she's so like enclosed in this rationality, at the same time, it's like she has these incredible inner resources that she's drawing on, even without, I don't know, without being conscious of it or something, to achieve this like healing.
She does. He mentioned that she is that she does this with such religious zeal. I think I have a little quote on that here somewhere. Maybe that is she just does it really with just first of all, she spent so much time on it. She spends so much time recording every one of her Adler very I think compassionately calls them interviews, but it's her analysis, her analytical hour. She very compassionately records, very passionately and completely records those. And when he read them, he was just incredibly impressed at their accuracy and their completeness. And then that she draws these dreams and stuff. She was really trying to heal. And I remember Hilda Kirsch, in her interview just recently, she told Jung that she wasn't seeing anything in her active imaginations. She wasn't experiencing all these dreams or visions, and it was just all blackness. And she said one night, if I don't see it tonight, I'm going to kill myself. She was just trying desperately, Hades, kidnap me, and take me to the underworld, death, take me to the underworld so I can start to have a relationship with this blackness that she's describing, this no voice, no face, no anything. Tim, how would you describe this in comparison to what you experienced on the mountain in Montana?
Well, what it makes me think of is the this Spanish idea of the duende that comes from the. I wish Jordy was still here. Maybe he could help illuminate that. But that's a concept that has been fascinating to me because it doesn't jive with anything else in Western culture. The duende is this sense of the creativity of the darkness. And you get a sense of it in tango, because tango has this kind of fierce, defying all aliveness that comes out of poverty, actually, in the Argentinian culture. Tango arose out of the lower classes, these people just absolutely struggling to stay alive. And it expresses this idea that we are going to persevere. And so I've just been fascinated with that idea. And for me, it's a counterpart to the creative process, which is more positive. and usually lighter. But the darkness of duende informs that process and brings kind of a depth to everything. And one way of looking at it metaphorically is if you look at anything in the physical world with the light right behind you, there's no depth. But if the light is off to the side or off in the distance, it creates shadows that help you to understand things, because the shadow creates depth. And I think that's true psychologically, that anything that has a dark element suddenly springs to life, because it's the darkness creates a kind of background against which we can see the positive.
It's like the silence between notes too.
Yeah, right.
I mean, not exactly, but it's just the this interplay of light and darkness.
Yeah, and in a materialistic world, the only thing we ever concentrate on is the the good news, the bright stuff, the intellectually sort of capturable. Whereas the mystery and the intrigue and the allure is always that it comes from that which cannot be described and cannot be captured.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to find here too, when she gets out of her stoniness, when she gets to be her stone. But I just and I will end here just a second, unless anybody has anything. But this reminded me of Jung's patient who was trapped in stone. She's trapped in stones here on the edge of the unconscious, and there are all these stones around, and yet the stones have yolks in them. They have the creative embryo in these stones, and like the lightning that is striking her, and she writhes and screams in silence. This woman had the same exact thing happen to her. I think there's more drawings of this, but this is how she was liberated. Now, in the case of this woman, she is just stands there static and is hit by lightning. And see, what she's being hit by are lightning, wind, and water. So these are the three elements of nature to her, which represent this thing that she can have zero relationship with. I mean, this aspect of that she absolutely can have no eros relationship with her is very important. Eros originally came from something like to do with the umbilical cord, which was this when it's gone, it's still there. This relationship of blood from you to the other, is impossible to break away. And we're also going to hear a little bit about the feeling function, which is the saving thing here. And I think I learned more about the feeling function from this little from this than I did from anything else. It was that the feeling function, it comes from the ego confronting an other. That's the ego confronts the other, and that's where the feeling it is observing a content, and then it decides whether it's an I thou or an I it, whether I like it or I don't like it, and so this sense of eros, and eros also is not just the feeling function, it also means bringing together, so it's the where the masculine is the now I'm probably getting these mixed up, but the masculine is the distal, which is the wide, the greater world, and then the of embracing the greater world. You know, if you're on a mountain, you want to embrace the entire universe, you know, and the systole is where you go back into yourself, you know, and that's there's this sense of bringing together and taking apart, you know. What do they call that? What is it in alchemy now? There's the word that it is you separate,
Dissolve and coagulate.
Yeah, dissolve and coagulate. You know, so and this is this aspect of dissolve is a it isn't exactly the differentiation of the logos, but it is this where the logos takes things apart, gives them names, and then Eros says we love them all. You know, there's nothing, you don't need to take them apart. Well, anyway, I am going to turn it over now to Gary and Adam and Jan, and you guys. I'm going to just mute myself. Next time we'll start with the black vision. Okay, so go ahead, Gary.
Cool. So it's interesting at the outset of this meeting, Craig was quoting Jung, and he said that psychologizing is really it's just us having dialogues with our inner daemons, as where the inner daemons are autonomous beings, and that is exactly the exercise that we're going to work on today. And actually what Tim just said too also has a lot of value. You know, he said, if we have the light behind us and we shine it, then, you know, you eliminate all depth. But if the light comes from another direction, then you have shadow and it creates depth. And the point of this exercise is that when we go through the paintings that Jan provided, and I added a couple too, we're going to want to look at the images and find something that appeals to us, but then instead of projecting ourselves into it, we're going to try to lend it our aliveness and let it speak to us autonomously. And so it'll be us having a dialogue with this figure or some other element of the painting, but it will be autonomous. You know, it will be its own being. And if, you know, and if we were to really get this right, you know, you would take this and you'd say, oh my gosh, you know, I can now write the Red Book. You know, I can write my own Red Book, or the Idiot's Guide to the Red Book, you know, and you would produce your own volume of your discussions with your inner dialogues. And I guess actually the other thing that I like that Tim said is he talked about the tango and the, you know, just the aliveness and the intensity, you know, that involved. And I think the more that we can lend that type of, you know, aliveness and intensity to these inner beings. And it's like, so like, let's say you found one today that really worked for you. Then what you wouldn't want to do is just say, oh, that was an interesting exercise and drop it. You'd want to keep that as like one of your first daemons that, you know, but you're now going to have as part of your polytheistic being, you know, because we're trying to get away from the ego and the monotheistic being. So what we want is a polytheistic being. And what's this polytheistic being made up of? Well, definitely the ego's there, but there's also these other daemons. And you know, the Greeks had this figured out. You know, they had their gods for truth and beauty and you know, hate and the works. And so when they had issues along these things, you know, they would go to these statues, and in my mind at least, you know, they would bring these things alive and they would hold these dialogues with them. And, you know, and this would be very meaningful. So I'm going to read a quote from Hillman. When it is the ego personality in its usual stance, then the autonomy of the field it enters becomes disturbed by this intrusion. So this is the ego coming into, like, you know, the images that we're going to look at. The figures of the imaginal psyche have to react in accordance with the ego's needs and patterns, i.e., this is what we don't want. The responses become ego-linked. They lose their autonomy, or they can show it only by disappearing. When Hercules went into the underworld, he forced the god Hades to flee from his throne after wounding him in the shoulder. Hercules entered the realm of the shades in order to take something, and while he was there, he wrestled, he drew his sword, he slaughtered, and was confused about the reality of the images. Each of us tends to be Hercules in ego when we begin to engage imaginal figures. Gestalt psychology seems to circumvent this obstacle by approaching all figures through empathy. One feels oneself into each of the persons and scenes in a dream or fantasy, acknowledging that, yes, this too is mine. By identifying with their feelings, they become my feelings, thereby assigning the autonomous images that are not mine straight to the ego. In other words, again, something that we don't want to do. Although this approach helps overcome the fear of the images and estrangement from them, its ultimate aim is their depotentiation and strengthening of the feeling ego. So what I did, and so what I was going to show you is I did the exercise. And so I'm going to show you like an image and then like a dialogue I created. You'll get a bit of a feel for it. And also let me put the, here's a link to the images that Jan provided. And now let's see if I can. Let's see. Is that sharing? Everyone see that?
Yes.
Yep.
And I just clicked on the link and it's you have to ask permission. I don't know what that's about.
Oh, well, hang on. Let me see if I can fix that first. Cool. Try it again, Tim, just to make sure it worked. Otherwise, I'll send out the link again.
Yes, it works.
It works? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So,
Lovely.
all right. So here's, are you seeing the painting and then it says Depression Daemon example below?
Yes.
Okay, so, this was the steamship, but I'm saying, to me, this kind of looks like depression. And so I'm just going to read through the dialogue. Me, so I'm referring to the ego here. Depression, I come to offer you alms. You desire that which is dark and takes the wind out of our sails. I have choice morsels for you to add to your black luminous clouds. Depression, bringing me your brooding, your one-track monotone vision, but also see there are some ships that sail free, quite happy to reside with me. Me, I come questioning all my experiences, my idea that maybe I have the least idea of what personification is about. Depression, good. There will be much to talk about. You see me as dark, but how could there be light without the dark? Already you've made progress. I am alive in your mind. You feel the movement of the winds and lake. This picture is not some part of you, but is alive and separate. You do not control me. You come not to conquer, but to talk. We can proceed. I have brooded. I got the first lesson completely wrong. How natural it feels to be talking with you. The mistake was to have people search for an emotion, an image, in the brilliant paintings Jan provided. This immediately landed us back in ego, totally monotheistic, no animation. Depression, yes. I wondered how long I would be this dead thing associated with some distant memory or feeling. It's so much better now to stretch, move about, listen to your sins. And is this not a beautiful place? Look how the colors dance across your mind. Brood some more. I'm enjoying this. It is bringing me more alive. Me. I have missed the obvious. I have to rely on felt senses that are not well developed. The obvious thing for personification is that we have to lend aliveness to the painting and then wait for it to speak to us, just as we are doing now. I have you as a daemon now, or you have me might be more accurate. Now I can call on you, or you can call on me when you feel something come up that could use your input. We are autonomous. Depression. Well, it seems you are not entirely dense. You have made the gift of aliveness to me and recognized my necessity and value. And now I am with you. You will always see this image when we talk, and it will be alive, rather than searching for some past association or feeling. You're free to leave for now. I expect regular alms, however. This brooding seems to be the only way you make progress. So that's the idea. Does anybody have any questions? Cool. So what I'm going to do is, pull up the events, the paintings, and then look at those. Choose one that seems to work for you. Choose the image to animate, to bring the shadow to create the depth, and then have a dialogue with yourself. And you've got 5 minutes, and then we'll do just like before. We'll say, well, did anyone do painting one? We'll just kind of work our way through. So go ahead and start, and I'll be quiet. How are people doing? Do you want more time or shall we go ahead and start? You can do like a thumbs up if you want more time.
I feel like I want more time, but I'd rather engage in the discussion and then go back to it after the session is over.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I'm going to bring up the share. Let's see if I can do this. All right. Did anyone do image 1? You'll have to speak up because I can't see. Okay. Image 2. Anybody do image 2?
Gary, I think Jan did it, and so did I.
Cool. All right.
Maybe,
Go for it.
yeah, let me see if I can find Jan's here. Having a challenge with my screen. Oh, okay. So she writes, okay. Unless, since Jan isn't jumping in here to read hers, I'll do it for her. So me, why are you crying? Freya, I cry for the world. Me, does the world cry? Freya, it needs a good cry. Me, what do the tears mean? Freya, the tears are answers, they are gifts. Me, why can't we find them? Freya, they are gold locked in stones. Me, how do we release them? Freya, you have to wait for what seems an eternity. Me, is there purpose in waiting? Freya, the gold is in the waiting. Me, what is the gold? Freya, the gold is the soul of the world.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
definitely some aliveness there. Now, I have to say, Jan had the opportunity to cheat because I sent her the the session beforehand so she could look at it. So if yours isn't as long, I totally empathize. But yeah, that was great. You want to go, Alan?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. Also, by the way, I thought that was beautiful. So here's mine. Me, and I also referred to her as Freya because the name of the painting is Freya's Tears. Me, golden tears, show me your love. Freya, I prefer to kiss you. Me, but your hair, it is richer than your lips. Freya, I contain generation. Me, yes, and the threat of death. Freya, death lingers at my mouth. My lips are parting for you. Me, but first let me kiss your eye. Freya, Me, I am lost in your death. Freya, I am opening my mouth. Me, your hair. Now I am touching her hair and kissing her deeply. That's it.
And that's it. What's interesting about this is that to me it feels like both of these could have come right out of the Red Book. I mean, it feels like a real dialogue. And I forget, Freya's somebody in mythology. Who's Freya?
Isn't
She is a Norse goddess that Friday was named after.
Okay, cool. Let's go on to
That's just not time.
anybody do image 3. If I go past, just yell out. Image 4.
I love all of them. Freya, that gold tears are almost 3-dimensional.
Oh yeah. Image 5.
amazing?
Now this one surely did him.
I love that. That was my second choice.
Yeah, I mean, because
That one frightens me.
you can just see there's like this determination, almost like an anger, and huge awareness. Image 8.
I did the Chagall.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love Chagall.
Fear or death. I have come to visit you again. As usual, I am here, but you choose to hide it under some logical thinking, ruling me out again. The blood you see is actually in you, and so am I. Rather than running away from me through love or other logical thinking again, or dreaming that I'm not real, why not just face it? Me. I don't understand why you need to be in existence. While love is supposedly to be empowering and signifying freedom and growth, you are there to stop me from having this chance of growth and freedom. For that, I hate you. The blood I see is actually velvet carpet, not blood. The candles I see are celebration where the angels were singing and celebrating. Fear. You cannot run away nor ignore my existence. The only way is to accept me as it is and acknowledge it. I am here. For I am like love, always in existence. But I can exist together with love, like yin and yang. No light can ever be shone upon without the comparison of shadows. Only through accepting and acknowledging my existence, you can be finally free.
Nice.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, this one really worked well for that.
I love these voices. Every voice is just, you just say you never get to do this during the week. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, so these voices, they're a part of us, but we're giving them their autonomy. I mean, and so then, then they're not a repressed thing. They get to contribute to help in deciding. Anyone do the Moonlight?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did that one. And incidentally, I've been doing paintings of stormy seas for the last couple months, probably about a dozen paintings. So this one really poked out at me. So I'm starting out saying, this vast sea is terrifying, but I know you hold secrets I crave. I can see that the calm water lies only beyond the fearsome waves that will dash me on the rocks of my own structures. Help me. The sea says, engage. You will never progress or learn without coming to the very edge and stepping in. Me. I'm scared, first of the cold, second of the unknown quantity, and third of the vile creatures who know no fear of me, as do my brothers of the land. See, don't you see the central luminosity? That too is me. I'm not just darkness and fear, but mist and enlightenment. Me. I know that in my bones, but not in my heart. I'm still loath to let go the dry ground, the comfort of the calm air. See, yes, this is your home, where you will die and someday be buried.
Yeah, I like that. And I remember, Craig, last session, he was talking about how he had done, and go ahead and speak up, Craig, and explain what you did. But it was a personification of like the forest and stuff around it. So Craig, describe it.
Yeah. Well, it was just, I had a experience, just in active imagination that was not planned or anything, but, I'm always trying to personify something to develop imaginal, kind of what we're doing here. But, I got into the forest and then I just sunk in. I try to assume the consciousness of the forest. I lend my ego awareness to the forest, and the forest, I just sunk in. I let the forest speak, and it started to speak. Have you considered my roots, which go down into the dark earth, and to my my trunk, which sends the branches up into the sky, you know, and the leaves that blow in the air. And anyway, it was all very vivid. And then I did this with another figure, and it got to be where then she says to me, she says, Craig, it's me. It's really me. I'm really here. You know, I mean, it's a little bit frightening because she just teased me that if she would eat me right at that moment, that I would be gone forever. You know, then she would be me. But anyway, I did this painting too. And Tim, you should be a poet as well as an artist. I'd like to read your
He already
work.
is.
Yeah, okay. Well, I just did this one. It was first, this was me. I just am talking to the scene. You know, I just said, the darkness of the unforgiving rocks lit eerily by a moon, shining through utter grayness, meeting another grayness of an infinite unconscious sea. And like a mirror, the unconscious reflects this lunar softness which somehow penetrates this impenetrable grayness. The grayness storms the rocks. There's conflict between this chaotic fluidity of the sea and the rigidness of the rocky land. So I see all this and I ask you, where is your healing balm? And then the painting says, the healing balm is in the acceptance of all this, the sense that this outer grayness, this outer chaos is our dream. It's not literal. The grays are the beginning, the departure point of soul. We of the soul are gray and dark because you neglect us. You left us this way. In other words, this scene that I see with no healing balm is my own soul. And the reason it is in this state is because I have neglected it and not given it color, the color of ego awareness, the color of feeling, function. You know, the daemon one told me to, if whatever you do doesn't possess all four functions, we don't want it. You know, it needs everything: sensation, feeling, thinking, and so anyway, this grayness is a painting of my own current departure point.
Well, that definitely speaks a lot. I mean, you know, I look at the painting and I can really relate to it a lot more now, you know. So that was great. Anyone do 10? $11? So hopefully somebody did this one, the hobgoblins. Anybody relate to the hobgoblins? Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, oh, I have to add this, you know, maybe someone will do this.
Oh, and the one you just passed was the mirror and the hobgoblins that I think Sandy was asking about.
Yeah, I
in the,
did that.
Oh, okay, great.
Huh.
Kevin, you need to unmute.
Yeah, I did the mirror and the bats. Like there's two pictures there. I did where it's full of bats and a mirror.
You want to do this one?
Yeah,
Oh,
further down with colors.
it's the one on the right, the one of the big mirror with bats around it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to challenge myself. It wasn't my first choice, but I was like, no, yeah, you have to do, you know, you have to get dirty. And
I'm so happy you did. I was hoping somebody would do that.
yeah, I was looking at this image, and it's just, for me, it was like, you know, coronavirus, what are you doing like here? Like, and they're like, can't you see we are giving you a reflection? And I tried to look, sorry, I didn't write it down, that's the thing. So, and I tried to look, you know, in the mirror and look further down, and what I see, what I saw was a meditating Buddha, and I was like, is this all you can, like, is this sort of all you can give? Like, this is quite boring reflection. Like, you man, I mean, you're a god, sort of. You can't give me like more colors, and why do you have to come with such a boring reflection? And he didn't quite answer me, and yeah, so I was pointed to the clouds where I felt there was a person there, and to the left of the cloud, I also felt there was like a white anima roaming around. And yeah, I didn't get much from it, but I felt like Corona was just a mere reflection, but I felt like the divines couldn't really give much of a, at least for me now, a colorful interpretation. It was just a mere reflection of perhaps what we should be doing rather than what we are doing. So it was more of family-oriented pictures I got from the mirror, but it was still very dull in that it wasn't really much color. Reflection. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so Kevin in our other group, he told us about writing love letters to the anima. And I heard that and I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a perfect exercise for this group,
Yeah, when I saw the anima, I was like, but it would be too much. I was like, yeah, I'll go to another stuff. Yeah.
Well, so anyway, I don't know if we'll be able to talk Kevin into that or not, but I've been reading a book on the animus. So it's like, if we do it, we have to have a good definition of it first. And then, did anyone do Persephone? No? Okay. Cool. All right. So where are we at? We've got, well, I guess we're almost out of time anyway, but so here's what I wanted to discuss. I think this is probably one of the most important exercises that we're going to do in this group. Because I mean, this is at the heart of psychologizing, this internal dialogue with the daemons. And what I wanted to do next time was kind of a repeat of this, but what I want you to do is I want you to keep whatever daemon that you've got now and amplify it a little bit, work with it some over the week, because you need to become familiar with it. And then next time, what we'll do is we'll go through the images, you'll choose something, but instead of the ego talking with what you've chosen, you'll take the daemon from today, and that will talk to the new daemon that you're going to add, just to make this, more challenging. And how does that sound to people? What do people think?
Gary, can you say that again?
Sure. So what you do is you take the daemon that you created today, and you work with it some over the week. I want you to, I mean, if this appealed to you, and if you have an image in your mind, then you want to get this to be something that stays. So you work with it, you amplify it, you have some dialogues. You work with what you created today. Then next week, we start the exercise afresh. You choose a new daemon, but instead of you communicating to the daemon from today communicates to the daemon that you'll create next week. So the ego won't be there. And of course, in a way, these are all aspects of ourself, but they're aspects that have to have their own voice, because if they don't have their own voice, then they're repressed. We're telling them to do what we think is right, or what we think is, otherwise it's like how we think they should be seen, or how we think they should express themselves. rather than animating them and just letting them be themselves. And so it's like, and so, you know, literally, I mean, literally, I don't know how many of you have read the Red Book, but this is, you know, I mean, so Jung had the advantage that he was crazy and all this just happened to him and all these characters just talked, you know, and
That's an advantage.
yeah, you know, and, you know, we have to, you know, we're going to have to work at it some more, but I think, but here's what I like about this. Okay, so Craig's got his active imagination that he does. And I think, you know, the way that he's doing it, you know, is very difficult for, you know, for all of us. And it takes a
Difficult for me. It was difficult for Young too. He worked his ass off
but
to get
what
where he was.
what I'm thinking is that, you know, this is giving us a way to kind of do baby steps into that. Because if we can create a set of internal daemons that, you know, that communicate with each other. And when we, and especially like, you know, if we have emotional issues, we want, you know, when something happens, you want a daemon for that. You don't want the ego that takes that part. You want, you know, you want this discussion amongst this set of daemons. And if we can get that, you know, we're getting the core part of, I think, what we're really trying to do in this group. What do you think, Craig?
Well, I think if you got a really good dream too, some unconscious content that is already very numinous to you, if you can take two figures in that dream and have them do a dialogue without you there, the dream ego. In fact, if you have a dream that where you're not even appearing too, that might help. But just take any dream that's very important that's got two figures in it and let them talk for a while, you know. And I mean, the whole idea of that I see doing that. Now you can do it with the picture too, but let me ask you this, Gary. When you have the two daemons talking, are they talking about the picture, or are you bringing another daemon in?
Well, all right, I'm going to give you, let me do a share screen again. And I'm going to give you an example of this. This is all just my particular weirdness. Okay, hang on. Okay, so down here, I've got one where I did it between the anima, the shadow, me, and depression. So, you know, in this one, you know, it's like I shouldn't have had the ego in there for what I'm talking about. But, you know, here we go. Shadow or anima, which will I get? One can appear to be on the path only to find anima. Follow life. Do not turn away your dreams. That which appears as wisps, small synchronicities, that may be me. I may not be fully conscious, but I dream, and in my dreams, I send messages to you. See these petals floating. They are there but for an instant, and yet eternally. That is me. Shadow. All that you have disowned is looking for a place, a voice. What are your earthly concerns to us, your idea of morality? We too want to be heard, to tell our myth, to be felt and accepted. We are always with you, waiting for your passions, fears, traumas to let us appear. So, you know, this is just, that's kind of my example. You know, I was just kind of playing with it and trying to, and it's not, it's hard because you have to stop in between. You have to feel the new entity. And if, you know, and you need to picture the new entity, and you need to feel some part of them. And as you feel some part of them, like some part of their body or something, then you'll be drawn into them, and then you can speak as them. But if you don't do that, then, you know, you may end up back in the ego trying to speak as that. So there's this whole aspect of take your time when you switch, picture it, and when you picture it, picture some aspect with the feeling sensation, feel yourself going into that aspect. Until you get that, you won't embody it.
I'm
Yeah,
wondering,
Gary, go ahead, Tim, sorry. Okay.
I like that sense of sort of elongated timing, but I'm also wondering if it wouldn't be effective, and I haven't done this, but if it wouldn't be effective to just do rapid fire conversation, ping ponging from one character to another, just to get out of the way of your own censor.
Yeah, and it's like, I wish I knew. I mean, this is best guesses. So I think, try what works.
I'll send out in an email the dialogue between soul, spirit, and body that was done by he's the student of Paracelsus. I forget what his name was, but it's just what you're describing. So
You talking about Dorn?
Who?
Dorn?
Yeah, Dorn, Gerhard Dorn. Yeah. It's a dialogue that he has between. Tim, you're amazing. How did you know that? Anyway, yeah, it's Gerhard Dorn, and it's the dialogue between body, spirit, and soul, where the only sane one in the bunch is body. Spirit and soul are very inflated compared to body, and they're trying to instruct body, but body's kind of humorous. It's got he's so earthy. Anyway, I'll just send it. It's a wonderful sort of what Tim's or Gary's describing. It's just get it. Gerhard Dorn did that. In other words, Gerhard Dorn has got three entities speaking to each other, none of whom are him, and then they go to see love. Either love or the heart. I forget who it was, Tim, but they went to the palace of the heart or love, and it wasn't sure it wanted to grant them admittance, but anyway, it's the story of the Conjunction. But anyway, that's all.
I'm all done.
Okay, well, next time we'll start with, and I hope I'm going to try to keep it to 15 minutes or so between things I do, and just to get some, so it isn't so drony, me droning on and on. But we'll start with the black vision in the wilderness. We saw the poem, which was very static. Then we're going to go to the black vision, and then we'll follow with her dreams. And I'm telling you, this is a detective novel, and you're going to love Gerhard Adler, because he has a very childlike attitude to it, and yet he knows more about it than anybody does. I mean, it's just this wonderful attitude of childlike wonder that he has, and that's what he mentions about her too. Is throughout this whole process, her just complete awed. She was completely awed by the unconscious contents and their beauty, and I hope this that we can convey a sense of how beautiful the unconscious is, and how much it loves us. And by the way, hi, Charles. I like your haircut. I need one so bad I can taste it. But anyway.
Yeah, sorry I came in late, but it sounds like I just need to comment next time with some demons. So
yeah. Okay, well, we're ending anyway here, so I think, unless anybody's got any comments. Yeah, and thank you for being here, Maggie, late, and Jan, you were wonderful. Yeah, oh, thank you. You know it was Dorn too. Yeah. Okay, all right, well, thanks. We'll see you all next time then. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, bye.